When we look at life and its challenges, we often see only the difficulties. The trials that arise are like mountains that seem insurmountable. Sometimes we wonder if we are able to endure everything that is happening, but it is at this moment that we must remember that God gives us no more than we can endure. He knows how far we can go and what we need to grow. Every difficulty, every fight, every difficult day has a purpose. It may be difficult to see this when we are immersed in pain, suffering, or loneliness, but God is always working behind the scenes. It allows us to face challenges not to punish us, but to strengthen us, to shape us to your image, and to prepare us for what is to come. Often we tend to try to control everything. We want to solve problems in our own way and time. But this is exactly what God teaches us during trials: the surrender to His sovereign control. When we learn to trust His wisdom, to understand that He knows what is best for us, we begin to see our difficulties in a new perspective. Instead of fearing the future, we can rest in the fact that God is ahead, preparing the way and guiding our steps. When you are in a difficult situation, whether it is financial, emotional, or even physical, it is natural to question, why is this happening to me? However, perhaps the most important question is, what does God want to teach me with it? Every difficult time is an opportunity to mature, to reflect, and to grow closer to God. There are times when our faith is tested to the extreme, when we lose something or someone important, when the doors seem to close and the answers are not enough. The tendency is to think that we are being abandoned. But the truth is that at these times, God is closer than ever. It becomes our refuge and fortress, our rock in times of difficulties. He does not leave us, He does not abandon us, and often allows us to go through these moments just so that we can realize how much we depend on it. Look at the story of Abraham. God made him a great promise that he would be the father of many nations. But before seeing this promise fulfilled, he went through moments of pain, doubt, and even challenges that tested his faith deeply. But in the end, he saw God's faithfulness, who fulfilled His promises at the right time. This is the purification process that we all go through. Since gold needs to be refined in fire to become pure, our faith is refined in times of tribulation. This also reminds us that often what we are going through is now part of a preparation process for something greater. God does not allow us to face difficulties just to see us suffer, but to prepare for a future that will be grand. Think of the great Bible leaders. Moses spent 40 years in the desert. Joseph was sold as a slave and learned to lead while in prison. David faced giants and had to wait for God's time to take over the throne. They all went through moments of waiting and trials that were crucial to their development. If they had given up, they would not have reached God's purpose for their lives. God has a perfect plan for each of us, and the challenges we face are part of this plan. Even if we do not completely understand now, we can trust that He is shaping us to something grand. The process can be painful, but the reward, the blessing that comes after fidelity, is indescribable. One of the greatest lessons we learn during trials is about patience. Patience does not simply wait, but wait with faith and confidence in God's process. Instead of hurrying to find a solution, we must rest in the certainty that God is in control of everything. Patience teaches us to wait for God's perfect time, that moment when the doors open and the promises are fulfilled. We also need to learn to trust in God's times, not our own. In today's society, everything happens very fast, and we're used to having everything in our reach instantly. But with God, things happen according to your plan and time. Sometimes this means expecting more than we would like, but this wait is an opportunity to strengthen us and prepare us for what comes next. In times of waiting, God calls us to a process of inner transformation. As we await our circumstances change, it works in us, shaping our patience, our trust, and our character. True change does not happen in external circumstances, but within us, as we learn to trust God at every stage of the process. As hard as it may be, we must remember that in every battle we face, God is with us. He never leaves us, and He never fails. Its fidelity is constant, even when everything seems to fall apart. The secret to crossing the difficulties is not to look at the storm, but to look at the one with you in the middle of it. When the weight of trials becomes unbearable, remember that God is the supporter of your life. He promises that He will not allow us to be tempted beyond our strength. When we are weak, it will be our strength. When we are tired, it will be our rest. Even at the darker moments, He promises to be with us. As we grow and mature in faith, we begin to see difficulties under a new light. They are no longer just obstacles, but opportunities to strengthen our trust in God. Each battle overdue brings us closer to the plan it has for us, and every difficult time prepares us for a future of blessings. This process of spiritual and personal growth can be compared to the training of an athlete. When an athlete is in training, he faces resistance, challenges, and often pain. However, these challenges are needed to reach the physical form to compete at a high level. Similarly, God trains us in our trials, allowing us to face the difficulties for our faith and character to become stronger. He does not want us to be weak, but let us be strengthened for the purpose He has for our lives. In many situations, God allows us to feel incomplete or unable to move forward so that we can learn to trust Him in full. God's dependence process helps us understand that without Him we are nothing. When we surrender to your power, it is when we are really able to do what seemed impossible. As we move forward in difficulties, we may not immediately understand what is happening, but over time we see the full picture. What seemed to be a loss, a meaningless situation, becomes a testimony of God's faithfulness. He always has a purpose, even in the difficulties that we cannot understand at that time. In the midst of all this, remember that even in the most difficult situations, there is a promise of transformation. God uses every challenge to shape us and prepare for what He has planned. Tests are not punishment, but opportunities for spiritual growth. Every step we take in faith, every difficulty overcome, brings us closer to the purpose it has for our lives. Although the process of waiting, pain and trial may be long and sometimes painful, we can trust that God never leaves us alone. He is with us at every moment, guiding us, strengthening us, and preparing us for what is to come. It has a complete view of our lives, while we see only part of the painting. And in the end, everything will make sense when we look back and realize that every difficult time was an essential part of our journey to fulfill His promises. Therefore, as we face the tests of life, when we pass through the difficulties, that we can always remember God does not test us to destroy us, but to strengthen us. With each trial, He is refining us, shaping us, and preparing us for the greatness He has for us. And in the end, the reward will be much greater than any difficulty we have faced. If today you are in a moment of trial, know that this is not the end, but only a step. In God's time, His victory will be revealed, and He, who is faithful, will fulfill His promises. Trust in the process, keep your faith firm, and remember difficulties are not the end of history. They are the beginning of something grand that God is preparing for you. God's faithfulness never fails. He's with you no matter what happens, and He will lead you to victory. If you have felt touched by this message and want to continue to receive more content like this, subscribe to our channel and enable notifications. Together we will strengthen our faith and walk toward God's plans for our lives.